show. You have Clybourne Park coming up, and that's going to be at the start of January. So right as the holidays are over and we start to be like, no, I'm depressed. The holidays are gone. What's going to happen? Don't worry. You have theater to still invigorate your soul.
That's right.
As a director, you look at your past productions, you look at the past work that you've done. How do you stop yourself from going down that kind of rabbit hole that you're just talking about? You're like, oh, I watch myself on screen. How do you keep yourself from being, instead of constructively criticizing yourselves, going, oh, I see, I could do that better for the next show. How do you stop yourself from going down that rabbit hole of being overly critical, where it's hard to be objective about yourself? Do you find that that's hard for you, even as the director?
A cast member asked me, oh, is this your first time directing? And I said, no. I said, I've been directing for 20 years. And that echoed in my head. And so my answer is, when you've been directing for this long, you just realize, or performing, that you can't make it perfect. You do the best show. The night the show goes up, Like, it doesn't change, right? The show must go on. And there's some comfort in that for me anyway, because you don't get forever to make it perfect. You get until the show goes up, and then you tweak things, and then the show ends and you write in your diary about it. But I asked other famous people that same question when I meet them, like, how do you not get, like, because, just think of Twitter, how people are so mean on Twitter. And they're like, we don't, like, you can't, like, everybody struggles with this. So you just have to do the best with what you have and be proud of the effort, and hope that the audience likes it. And if they don't, that's okay too. I don't know. There is no perfect answer, except I think experience is what helps you realize that there's always another show coming down the pike. This is not the only show you're ever going to direct. And when I heard myself say I've been directing for 20 years, I was just like, wow, that's actually true. Like, that's not just something I said to my cast members so they'll trust me. Like, that's actually true. I've been directing since I'm 18 years old. So it's been a pleasure, working on a full scale production at the Heights Players, because I've never done that. So that, I think, was what she was referring to. Like, oh, is this your first time? And of course I was like, no. But it is my first time having, like, what I would call a main stage production. And it is a full show, 2 acts, 2 hours, full cast, props, lighting, set design, etc. So I'm really excited to kind of dig into all of that and have something amazing for the audience to see in January, when all the Christmas trees are coming down and we need something to do.
Yeah, which actually, now you pointed out, it's surprising that this is your first full scale product. Like, oh, wait, how have you not done that? But because there's so many different ways and there's so many different things to get involved in as a director, that actually is it's easier than you think to go so long without doing a specific type of project. And because you tend to get known for, oh, you're really good at this or really good at that. So people tend to pull you in for those kinds of things. So how do you take yourself and improve upon yourself production? You talked about writing in a diary. Do you have somewhere where you write or make note of things that really worked for a certain production, or things that you liked how they came out, and you're like, okay, noted, let me take this to the next show and see if I can apply it there?
Oh, for sure. So I keep a notebook of every show that I do. And I can't say that I really go back over the notes, but I do take the notes. So for me, if I take the note, it's like it's stored up here. And one of the things that's been really fortunate for me about the Heights Players is I've had so many opportunities to work on shows, to hone the experience. So when now it's finally my turn, I have this notebook full of, things to kind of jot down and remember. I assistant directed 2 years ago. I was a stage manager right before COVID. I directed smaller scale productions. I had so many opportunities before getting this big opportunity to really work on the craft of directing. So I'm super grateful for that. I think the best thing to do, we're forgetting all the notebooks, because I write the notes and then never look at them.
Right.
Even though I register them up here, is to really support yourself by having the best team possible. So I have an amazing assistant director. I have a fantastic stage manager. I have, this team around me that is pushing me to be better. And that's what I'm looking for when I do a production, is who's going to help me be better, who's going to help me learn something. And hopefully I can do the same thing for them. And these are all people I met at the Heights Players. Actually, the stage manager, Felicia, the assistant director, Darea, my set and lighting designer, Noel. I've met them all at the Heights Players. These are all relationships that started there. And now we get to work on this bigger project together. and flex our muscles in a new way. So I'm really, really grateful to them. They're keeping me sane during this time.
So one of the things that I love the most about the Heights players is the way that we all connect, and like working together on a show builds such great relationships that then it's like, oh, when can I work with you again? When can we work
Exactly.
together again? And you end up like, you really do, you find ways to, oh, I'll work on the show with this person. Oh, this person's doing that. I want to help them there. And it also is great because I think it pulls people into new experiences, because you're like, I've never done set design before, but oh, is Felicia working on set? Yeah, I will help her out. This way I get to work with you guys. So you actually learn new skills because you just want to hang out with people that you like. It's like we get to hang out and do this thing called theater, and we get to have
Make
fun.
art.
And we get to make art. And it doesn't feel like work. And like you said, having that team and having a group of people around you that one will make sure to bring out the best in you, that you know that you can rely on to be honest with you when you ask them a question and are going to be constructive with their criticism, but also really support you when they say, no, I'm telling you, this is working, go with this. Tell us a little bit about Clybourne Park and the show itself, because it's a relatively new show too. It was 2010, correct? It was a
That's
2010 play?
correct.
So that's relatively new. Is there something a little bit not scary, but I guess is it a little bit maybe intimidating or influencing when you do a newer show that you're like, oh, people might have seen the original? Like I might get people in the theater that actually saw the original. So it's not something they read about or heard about, or they actually might have memories of the original. Is that something that you take into account? You're like, nope, I'm not even going to think about that.
Well, I did think about it originally, and you always do, especially when you're doing like a really well-known work. You know, Clybourne Park won the Pulitzer and it won the Tony for Best New Play. So like people know it.
Mm-hmm.
And it is an sort of a companion piece to A Raisin in the Sun, which is a very, very famous play by Lorraine Hansberry, and that we all read in high school, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then saw the movie with Sidney Poitier. So it's relevant to this classic work. And so people are pretty familiar with it. And then it went and won all these awards.
Right.
I worried about that like initially for like a millisecond. And then I remembered that we have the shortest attention spans now than we've ever had. And it was 10 years ago. So people won't remember. And it's really not available like on YouTube to view clips. So they can't even go back and look at the clips. They're going to have to come see my show.
Which is fantastic, because you're like, great, I don't want you to be influenced. I don't want you to come in with
Exactly.
too many preconceived notions.
Right. And I don't want the actors to do that either. But what's helpful about it being current is that there is a lot of stuff on the internet to research about how teachers teach the play, what other productions have done. And, you know, that's sort of the conversation that the set designer and I started having is like, well, what were the other sets that people did that worked? What didn't work? What's something we want to take to our production? You know, we have a different kind of space at the Heights Players where we have audience on three sides of the stage. So
Right.
we can't do a traditional, you know, set like you would see in an auditorium somewhere or on Broadway. So that was a good place to start, was to start with all the pictures and all the press with what they did and then take it in our own direction. And I'm really actually excited about the set because Noel McDuffie designed something that's very imaginative and different than what I've seen other Clybourne Park productions do. And it's very specific to our space, which I also like because we should do things for our audience.
Yeah.
Especially.
It
So
makes
I'm
it
excited
unique.
about
It makes the
this.
production of this this production of Clybourne Park unique, because even if people are familiar with the show, the space in which it is told and the set is such a character. It's such a part of whatever kind of show that you're doing, that to make it unique for the Heights Players brings a whole new experience for the audience, even if they're familiar with it. And I saw like you didn't leave that set work up to everybody else. I saw on your Instagram, you got in there, you were painting, you were helping out. I mean, is that also important to you as a director? Obviously, you give people jobs and you know they have their lanes to work in, and you respect that. But is it important for you as a director to get your like hands dirty and help in all those avenues to make sure that you're helping out with set design, or you're jumping in to help costume? Is that an important part to you as being a director? Like a director should be involved in all those avenues as well and shouldn't just like stay removed from it.
It's such a delicate balance, Alex, because you bring these people onto your team that you trust and you want them to run with it. And also you need to support them in order to do that. So, you know, as a director, you're the leader, and everything that happens on stage, for better or for worse, is your fault, good or bad. The brilliance is your fault. And the stuff, you know, the scenery falling down or whatever it is also your fault. So when my set designer says we have to paint and we need a couple of people, I'm the first to sign up. because I have to lead by example, and I have to be willing to get paint in my hair, which I did, and make it happen, because that's how community theater happens, is because of people coming together as teams and getting it done and giving their free time. So it was not just me getting paint in my hair, it was also stage manager, one of the cast members, my 2 children, my husband, like everybody got in on it, because we're all committed to the same goal, which is making the show as great as possible. So I try to walk that delicate balance between letting them, because he's the expert in the set, right? Not me. He's the expert. But I am the kind of keeper of what it's going to look like ultimately on stage. And also I have to be there to support everybody. You know, everybody's down there because they love theater. It's totally a labor of love. And so I have to really commend everybody who gets involved, because it's something that takes a lot of effort to take away from your life, to take away from family, from work, to go down there and make art happen. We all have that goal in mind. And I think that's why the Heights Players is still so strong all these years into being Brooklyn's oldest self-sustaining community theater, is because we all have that same goal in mind. So yeah, I'm happy to get in and paint. I mean, I also will tell them I have no talent. Like I have 0 talent. So just show me what to do and I'll do my best. I can't promise it's going to be beautiful, but I'm willing to try. And you know, that's the thing I would say about like what you were just saying about, you know, hey, yeah, I'll work on the set. I don't know anything about it, but I'm willing to try. Like that's the great spirit about being theater people. We are creative problem solvers and we're willing to try. And you know, I get asked to do stuff all the time that I don't know how to do, and I go, well, I'm willing to try. So let's at least see if we can get something done and learn a new skill at the same time.
And that attitude as a director, I think personally has such a positive effect on the set and the production, because when your director is willing to do anything to help and be an equal member of the team, you really feel like you're all in it together. It's not like this hierarchy of like, I am the director and I am here and you are there beneath me. How dare you? Don't look me in the eye, turn away. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I'm not Scorsese, you know, whatever.
But it creates this idea of we are all in it together and here to help each other out and support each other. And when the director, because you're right, when at the end, it's kind of like, the buck stops with you, you know? So if things aren't going right in the end, it might not be your fault, but there's a sense of responsibility that you have as a director for what goes on and what happens. So that also trickles down to when you say, okay, yeah, this is your lane, but what do you need me to do to help out to make your job easier? Cool. Okay. I want to make sure we're still in this vision. Awesome. What can I do? What can I do to help you to make sure that you're not stressed out? Everyone's like, oh yeah, she's got our backs. They're like, we are supported. And that has such a positive ripple effect on the set environment and on the effort that people put in their own work, because they see you doing it. So they are reciprocating it back. And that's fantastic.
I have 2 jobs as a director. I have to direct the show, and I also have to create a culture where people feel supported enough to do their job.
100%.
And to give me the good stuff. Right. So, you know, right now in this crazy time we're living in, like that means that I have to, you know, get COVID tests to have on hand so I can test my cast members so that everybody's safe, so that they feel supported to go and do what they have to do for the show. I never would have thought that I would have to think about something like that 20 years ago when I started directing, right? It was more like help them learn their lines, you know, support them if they go through a bad breakup or something in the middle of your show.
Right.
Sometimes you just have to bring food. Now, seriously, actors are always starving. But now it's, you know, now it's safety and COVID protocols and, you know, making sure we take care of people's mental health while we go through all of this. So, you know, that's what I tell people. Like, if you're going to direct the show, you have to understand that there's 2 jobs. You have to direct the show, and then you also have to take care of these people. And that's the only way to make it happen in a way where you feel good about it and the result is great.
Right. Because it's true. First of all, I think it's just a decent thing to do is to care about your cast and crew, whether you're the director or not, is to care about the people around you and their safety. But as a director, it is very important because, again, you're cultivating that environment on set to make sure that people do their best work. And because at the end, you are the leader. So you're setting the tone and you're setting the example. And that actually brings me to one of the questions I want to ask you was, in the past, like 2 weeks, it feels like so much of the world has changed, where Thanksgiving came, we're like, sweet, we're gonna be able to have normal-esque holidays. This is gonna be so much better than last year when we were all
Yeah.
like depressed and stuck inside and feeling like
Plot
the holidays didn't even
twist.
exist. Plot twist. COVID, thank you. Act two, coming in here for who knows how this is going to develop. And it feels, I mean, we were saying earlier before we really started chatting in, it almost feels like March 2020 vibes where you're like, I don't know what it's going to be like. We have some Broadway shows that are stopping. I just saw that Jagged Little Pill isn't going to reopen. I mean,
Yeah.
the Rockettes had to cancel the rest of their season. So there's all of a sudden all these changes because you're like, this is starting to feel like there's a spike. How is this changing you guys? Like, how's this changing your production? Obviously, you said you're bringing in the COVID test so people can stay safe. It is also super hard now getting even an at-home test. All the pharmacies around me are like out of them. Appointments
Sure.
to get tests are getting out. So, there's a sense of like this tension that's building because the outside world is having a little bit of a breakout again. Like the pandemic is kind of coming back in a way that we didn't expect it to. How are you adapting for the production? Like, are you just kind of playing day by ear? Or, okay, let's do a Zoom rehearsal maybe tomorrow. Let's say like, how do you address this and not let it get in the way of the work that you're doing?
I mean, there's no good answer to this, right? It is day by day. The good news is we've had really strong protocols in place since day one. So we've just continued with those strong protocols. So that was a really big help just to kind of create like a baseline of safety. Listen, we had cast members who got exposed and they had to take 5 days off of rehearsal because we had to make sure they were clear before coming back. So that has an effect, right? That
Mm-hmm.
you're expecting people to be at rehearsal and then they're not. But I felt like I had to take care of people more than I needed them to come to rehearsal.
Right.
And luckily, I have really solid actors who, if that happened to them, they went and they learned their lines. They worked on it on their own. They came back ready and raring to go so that there wasn't as much of a gap there.
Right.
And, honestly, I'm learning one of the parts as an understudy. My assistant director is learning another part as an understudy. We're putting understudies in place, which is not something we've done really at the Heights
No.
Theaters with any regularity because it's just really never been required. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if I plan for it now, maybe it won't happen. But at least I'll be prepared because anything
Right.
can happen.
And this cast, like you said, it's a small cast. It's 7 people. One of them is your brother.
Oh yeah. Yeah, one
So
of them is my brother. He did really well in the audition. Thank God.
what is it like auditioning your brother? Are you extra hard on him? Is it harder for you to say, okay, remove the fact that he's my brother and sometimes I may want to murder him. Let's just take a look at like when you work with family, when you work with people that you already know so well like that, how do you audition objectively?
I mean, it's hard, right? Because I asked him to come in and audition. I thought it would be
Mm-hmm.
great for him to be in this show. And I love to work with my brother. We've worked in every iteration. I directed him. He's
Mm-hmm.
directed me. We've been on
Mm-hmm.
stage together. We've been on backstage
Yeah,
together.
this is not the first time that you're
Right.
working together by any means.
So
Yeah.
we have, sort of a working artistic relationship as well as being siblings. But I did say to him, you have to come down and audition. And I treated him like everybody else. And the cast didn't know he was my brother for like the first 2 weeks of rehearsal. So I felt like,
Amazing.
all right, well, then I did a pretty good job. I think they probably knew we knew each other.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they must know each other, but they didn't realize we were brother and sister till a little while in. Thankfully, the rest of my production team thought that he was the best for the part. So I didn't have to say it first. They're like, wow, Vincent's really great. You should cast him. And I was like, okay, all right, good.
Good. We're all on the same page. Cool.
I thought that too. But it never works in this kind of environment, I think, when you precast a role, because you disintegrate the experience of the actors going through the process together of winning the roles.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just never do that. To say, oh, okay, well, this role's already cast. Nobody can audition for it because I'm casting anyone, not just my brother.
Right.
I
Also,
think
then
they all have to go through the process together.
doesn't it affect the process as well? Because if you precast somebody, then you're sort of casting around them because now they're already in this
That's
role.
true.
So if you find somebody that you really love for role number 3, but you're like, oh, but it might not necessarily work with this person, but I really love this. You sort of already kind of, I get not box yourself in, but you now committed to casting around the person that you've already put in a
Sure.
role, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I hadn't even thought of that because I've never done it before.
Right.
because you have to see what the chemistry is in the room.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that they go through that experience together. You know, they were all at the callback together, and they all got to see each other do the callback and win the role. So yes, I listen. My brother is my best friend, and we've been working on shows together for 20 years, no joke. And it's always a privilege to get to work with him. And he stretches me as a director, and I hope that I stretch him as an actor, because we kind of push each other in the right direction. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a nice luxury to have,
Mhm.
because you don't always get the opportunity to do that. So if I end up on stage with him, it'll be even more of kind of a bizarre thing if I have to actually pull off being an understudy. But that'll be interesting and weird. But we'll certainly it'll certainly be fun for our family who will come as audience members.
Yes. Oh, that is kind of that it's you bring up a good point where when you work with family because they know you so well, or usually, they know you. I don't want to assume some people aren't super close to their family, but usually if they know you so well, it pushes you in a different way because they automatically know they can be a little bit more honest or a little bit more blunt or maybe a little bit more direct in how to say things versus a cast member that met you for the first time at the auditions and is like,
That's right.
oh, I don't know if should I say, can I say, isn't it me? No, she's open. She lets me, but I don't know if I'm covered. It's a lot easier for someone's like, yeah, I'm not even gonna beat around the bush. I think this works awesome. That though, you got to work on that. And sometimes you're like, okay, agree to disagree. But other times it's nice to just have somebody that they're coming at you 100%
Sure.
honest and just wanting to bring out the best. And you're like, okay, thank you. Yeah. And now what about the rest of this cast? Who's in it? Are they all Heights players or do we have some newbies? And then how do you bridge the gap between the Heights players, veterans that know other people and know what to do, and then the new people that come in, they're like, finding their way.
So we have one returning Heights players to the show, which is Hassan Hope. He was just recently in Getting Away with Murder.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's my one veteran in the cast. I don't really count Vincent because he only worked on my workshop.
Okay.
That you were in the same weekend.
Yes.
So he's never done like a full main stage at the Heights, but he has been at least one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of the actors are all people that I just met that came out to the audition. And, theater is really the ultimate meritocracy. You get the part if you're the best for that part in that production. And so I'm really proud actually that we brought in a lot of new people because we want to always attract new artists to our theater.
For sure.
We have this nice balance of having all these veterans working on the production team, veteran stage manager, veteran assistant director, etc. Do you want me to list the cast? Would that be?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's shout them out.
Oh my gosh, the pressure of remembering everybody's names. So, I'm like, oh my God, the pressure. Okay, so the cast consists of Hassan Hope, Vincent Ingrisano, La Rivers, Megan Moses, Josh Horvitz, Sally Ann Roberts, and Pierce Ducker.
Lovely.
7 people. And there's 5 of them that are totally new to the Heights, and hopefully will stick around for other shows and are bringing some amazing new talent onto our stage. So I'm really happy about that.
That's a great thing, is to constantly bring in new people and have new faces, have new, fresh energy that's in there. It's just always fun to continue to grow the Heights players. And because this is a majorly new cast, does that change how you start, like the games that you play in the beginning to kind of loosen up? Obviously, it seems like a lot of that right now is based on the stress of life and the fact that, there's a lot going on outside of the theater that you don't want to bring into your production. But is that something that you use also because, hey, it lets everybody sort of get on the same page and get to know each other? This way, there aren't any of those kind of worries or little like nerves about being the new kid or being new or getting to know everybody,
What I like to do, because we have the auditions upstairs in the auditorium, but not in the theater.
Yeah.
People get cast and they don't know there's a theater. Like they think we're going to do the show in the auditorium.
Yeah.
So what I like to do on the first rehearsal is take them on a tour of the theater because some of them have never seen it. And so when we did that on this production, it just so happened that the theater was available for us to take a tour. I mean, their minds were blown. Oh my God, this dressing room is going to be for us, this beautiful dressing room. And I was like, yeah, it is going to be for you. And I sort of was reminded of what a precious gem the Heights Players is, because I've been down in that dressing room since 2009 doing shows. Since
Mm-hmm.
Clybourne Park premiered on Broadway, I've been doing
Right.
shows down there. So I kind of forget what a precious gem it is. But that excitement is super, just kind of fun to see. And they were so thrilled. They said, "Oh, we thought we were doing the show in the auditorium." I said, "No, no, no. We have a full theater with like a lighting grid and a sound grid and
Right.
all these things." So that was really fun. And, you have to just be mindful of the fact that people don't know what they don't know. And so
Mm-hmm.
I have to do a lot of educating about, well, this is how we, do things here at the theater. And, somebody asked me if they had to get their own props. And I said, "No, we have a props mistress and she's going to bring all the props. And if there's something specific you need, let me know. But here's the props list and we're already working on that." And I think because we do have like full crew at the Heights Players to do a full show, and people aren't
Mm-hmm.
used to that in New York. Usually you have to bring your own costume.
Yeah. It's very DIY. It's very
Right.
DIY
In other
theater.
places, right, DIY. So here it's like, no, we have a costume designer. It's Amanda Enriquez. We have a props mistress. It's Michelle Macaron. We have all these people here to help you do your job, and so you can just show up and do the acting. That's the hope, anyway.
Right. And that's also, again, that you come in, there's the support of knowing that, yeah, I can just concentrate on the job that I have. And there's all these other people, like we all come together, we all work together. The energy and the vibe from doing a show at the Heights is so much fun. And it's like, it's its own, I hate using this comparison, but I don't know what else to use it. It's like its own drug where it just, it's like the rush of being on the stage and working on it. And also
It's true.
being around everybody, even just going to a show, even when I just go as an audience member, I'm giddy as, I'm going to curse. I'm giddy as fuck. Like it makes me so excited to see it come to life in front of me. And it's so much fun. It's just a whole energy of being,
And that's the magic of it being live theater.
Yeah.
I don't think you can't bottle that magic and bring it to a Zoom show. You just can't. I mean, I know
it's different.
Yeah, you can't. And so that's why I'm just so passionate about making sure we can continue to do live theater in person.
Yeah.
Because it is like a special snowflake that never exists again. The performance you see that night, right? It'll never be exactly that same performance again.
Nope.
Even if it is the same show, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, Cats ran on Broadway for 20 years or whatever it is. They did 20 years of different performances every night, even though it's the same show. I think that's the magic of being in person. And that's why we're just so excited to be able to do it again and keep, we have these protocols in place to keep people safe so that they can come and feel confident in that and support us while we bring the live theater back. So.
Don't let it live theater and the arts is what got us through the first round of the pandemic. And we want to make sure that they stay around because they're going to be the ones that get us through the second round and get us to the point where we can finally just literally breathe and not be like, is there another mutation? Is something coming around the corner that we should expect?
And, Clybourne Park is such a timely show, even though it is, 10 or so years old, because it's all about race relations.
Right.
And we've been living in this time now, since the killing of George Floyd, where we're all thinking about this really top of mind constantly about what it means to be, an ally, or what it means to live in a city, which is like New York City, where we still have a lot of sort of self-selected segregation, but it is a very diverse city. And, what does this mean for how we move forward as like humankind? And Clybourne Park talks about all of these themes. It talks about what makes up a community. And that's actually what you and I have been talking about this whole time, right? What is the community? What is Heights Players community? We're talking about it in that context. But one of the questions that the play raises is, how important is it to be able to fit into your community in order to be happy? And I don't know the answer. I mean, maybe the play will answer it, but there's a whole conversation about, who belongs in a community and who doesn't. So just to set it up for you a little bit, the first act of Clybourne Park takes place in 1959 in a suburb of Chicago called Clybourne Park, where a white family is about to move and they've sold their house and are leaving town. And it turns out that the family that they sold the house to, they weren't aware, but it is a Black family.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the family from A Raisin in the Sun, the younger family. That is the story of A Raisin in the Sun. That's by Lorraine Hansberry. Their story in Raisin in the Sun is that they're going to move to this beautiful neighborhood in the suburbs and their life is going to improve and it's going to get better. And that's sort of the lasting image of A Raisin in the Sun, right? They move into this beautiful new house. In Clybourne Park, it's the other side of the story. And it's the people in the town who are appalled that a Black family might be moving in. And
Yeah.
they're not necessarily, what's interesting about how this play is written by Bruce Norris and why he won the Pulitzer is that at different times in the play, you side with every different character. You go, oh yeah, I get his point. And then you go, no, no, maybe not. And then, oh, and I get his point. Oh, maybe not. And you see everybody's point of view because it is such a nuanced response to change. And
Hmm.
one of the things that the play addresses is, change is inevitable as long as it's change for the good. And that's when people are really on board with it. And when it might not be change for the good, they try to stop it. And how
Hmm.
successful they are or not sort of is the question of life, right? And that gets brought up a lot in the play. Well, change is inevitable, but we want it to be change for the good, not change for the bad. And
Right.
that's Act One, is about a couple, Bev and Russ, who are selling their house. They've had a tragedy in their life and they're ready to move on and move away. And they're basically selling the house at a cut rate price. And that's why the younger family are able to afford it.
Hmm.
And the neighborhood's response to that and all the questions that brings up in 1959. In the second act, we jump ahead 50 years to 2009, and it's the same house in the same neighborhood of Clybourne Park. But now it's the white gentrifiers, the white couple, buying the house in the black neighborhood that they want to rebuild and tear down and put back up a little bit higher and move into because they're having a baby and they want more
Hmm.
space. And this is very current to those of us who live in New York City right now. I mean, this has been
Yeah.
a conversation going on in New York City for, I don't know, probably the last 20 years. Last time, for all the time that I've lived here, is that, who does the community belong to?
Right.
Does it belong to the people who are moving in or the people who inhabit it now? And in the second act, it's actually the African American couple that say, we're not sure we want you to move here. This is our community now.
Hmm.
And just, how 50 years changed the whole, aspect of what you're looking at in terms of the same one house.
It's the landscape of the community has changed.
Exactly. And, some people, all the actors play two roles, or at least two roles, one
Hmm.
in Act One and one in Act Two. So they all transform into a totally different character for Act Two, which has got its own acting challenges, which I think is interesting to
Yeah.
explore, to tell this story of this one house. And, a character in the second act says, I really, this has all been fascinating. And it's great we're talking about American history, but can we focus on the house? And someone else says, well, the history of private property is the history of America. And that just really struck me because, well, isn't that true?
Hmm.
Then
Hmm.
looking back to why we had the Revolutionary War and why America even exists was about creating private property for people.
And who was
And
allowed, who was deemed worthy to have
that's
ownership
right.
over this private property. And then the way that they established who was able to own private property has had ripple effects because it's been very hard to break the cycle for people to come in and own because it
Right.
sort of goes from generation to generation. You build upon it.
Right. And I think what's interesting about this play is that it doesn't really take a point of view about who's right and who's wrong.
Mm.
Instead, it brings up all the questions for the audience to decide.
And that's also, I think really important for the fact that it's bringing up all those themes, all those points of view, and just trying to throw it, like, for the audience to be able to watch it and go, wait, but I want an answer. You're like, but that's the thing. It's not as easy. I'm not going to tell you that. You have to do the work, think about it,
That's
have
right.
the questions, talk about it, see what other people think, because everybody's experience is going to inform how they take the points that are brought up in this play differently.
I think the one of the questions that's most interesting to me about it is, what does a person owe to their community?
Yeah.
What does their community owe to them? And, we've just survived this crazy pandemic where a lot of people in my circle were like, I'm leaving. I'm out. I'm leaving New
Yeah.
York. I don't want to be part of this anymore. And then there were people who stayed and they said, no, I'm sticking to my guns. I'm staying. I was one of the people who stayed, and nobody's right and nobody's wrong. It's just, what did, what did you owe to your community at that moment? And what did they owe to you? And people make their choices and move on. And this is America, where people move back and forth, and it's a little bit cyclical. And sometimes there is collateral damage to communities when
Yeah.
mom and pop stores have to close because they're not being supported by the community anymore. And it is sort of the tragic part of it, but it also brings a lot of hope. And that's what one of the characters says in Clybourne Park is, the reason that the younger family had this opportunity is because there was a tragedy. But for them, it was an opportunity, and they were able to seize on it and put their family on a better path
Right.
in the good neighborhood. So I guess my point is it brings up a lot of questions. It doesn't not necessarily provide the answers, but the audience is smart. They'll come up with their own answers.
And I think that that's in a work like this, the fact is there is no probably clear answer. And so it's about starting the conversation and just introducing different viewpoints and
Sure.
different questions to the audience that they might not have thought of before, and just doing that and allowing people to marinate on that and let those questions sink in, and then their answers and their ideas of it come to life. That's the answer for the play. Like, I'm here to create this conversation. I'm here to open your
Right.
mind, open your eyes to things that you might not have thought of before. I'm not here to tell you what to do, because I don't, like, I'm, Bruce was like, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I'm just saying we should be talking about this, but like, I don't, I don't have the answer.
Yeah, exactly. I think the best art opens up questions and
Yeah,
opens up a conversation. And then that's the starting point for
absolutely.
art changes the world.
It
If you let it.
influences, it changes, it informs. I mean, it's and that's the power of art, is that there's so much behind it, and it's because it comes from the human experience, and that's literally what, as we're living life, we are connecting to things that speak to us, right? On an emotional level, on a, oh my gosh, that's situational. That's exactly what happened to me or what's happening to me. So art has the power to connect strangers and to tell stories and to inform and to open up people to things that they would never be exposed to otherwise. And that's I think so important to living life, is to constantly be learning and be introduced to new things, because
And how
we're
lucky are
all,
we to get to do it in
I
Brooklyn?
know,
To come for $20.
I know,
I
I
mean,
know.